Okay, here we go. Okay, I'm presenting. Okay, today we're going to learn about pop art, and we're going to do some stuff like this. Okay, like that. Okay, I'll explain what this means. It's like in the past, and a lot of people don't really know about art, but in the past, let me just show you. In the past, and some people only relate to this, realism. So, realism are images of real people and real situations and so on. Like, you know, this one. This one's American Gothic. I saw this at the Chicago Museum. And here's some realistic paintings. Okay. Um, after realism came Impressionism. So what happened? Don't worry, it's going to be a short review. A lot of people didn't like this style, even though it's a lot more colorful and beautiful. I'll tell you why. Because, well, they liked to see real things, and people still like to put things on their walls that look real. The problem with these, notice that these paintings look kind of brownish, brown and greenish. Well, what happened is that artists used to have studios, and they used to get ideas, and they'd grit off their canvas and so on, and then they'd grind there weren't any paint tubes back then. They would grind their own pigments. Like, let's say you wanted brown, then you'd grind a brown rock, and you wanted blue, you'd grind something blue, and you get a little powder in it, and then you add oil into it. They mix their own paints, so they painted indoors all the time. What happened is that in the 1800s, the chemical industry changed, and they're able to create fake colors using chemistry. And and then they ended up making early paint tubes. And well, they didn't really look like this, a little more basic. They made early paint tubes, and the paint tubes allowed the artists to go outdoors finally, because they did all their paintings indoors. So the artists went outdoors, but the problem with going outdoors is that you had to capture the light of the area really quickly. So you had to learn to paint quickly, because light changed. You know, at a sunset, there's a beautiful time when the sky looks beautiful and the clouds look beautiful, but it only lasts like 10-15 minutes. Well, these artists had to paint really, really quickly. And to be able to paint quickly, they had to put dabs of color. So this is the painting that started it all. It's by Monet, and it's called Impression Sunrise. It had to be done quickly because that's what he saw. He had like 5 minutes to capture it, and he painted this. And then people used to think that these were just studies, and they used it to go into the studio and so on. But no, Impressionists were serious. They thought, well, this is what I'm seeing at this time, and I have to capture it really quickly. So the Impressionists did really beautiful and fast paintings. I saw this one. It's in Chicago Institute, and there's another one at the Louvre in Paris, and there's another one in Washington Museum there. So they had to paint things really quickly, so they gave the impression of the look, and they painted big. And people really didn't like it because it didn't have the finish look of realist paintings. Okay? So that's why you had these really rough brush strokes, because I had to do it fast. So went from realism to Impressionism, and then we went from Impressionism to, of course, Post-Impressionism. Now in this case, maybe artists painted outdoors, maybe they didn't. there's a lot of parodies. But some artists started taking a long time, but they used techniques in the Impressionists, like those brush strokes, to be able to paint really beautiful stuff. So this took longer than 10, 15, half an hour, and it was done by Van Gogh, and this Starry Night was done by Van Gogh. So they started taking a bit more time, but they used some of the techniques of the Impressionists to be able to have a more dreamy effect to it. Okay, this is beautiful too. So in post-impressionism, we have people like Gauguin, who did this kind of stuff. Really amazing. He traveled to different countries like Tahiti and so on. And I've seen so many of his paintings. They're so gorgeous. And he ended up dying, and what many painters died of was syphilis. It was an incurable venereal disease. And he did something more like symbolism. So he used sort of very different colors. It's quite amazing. And then there were symbolists. Symbolism. So notice that all of these, symbolism in art. Notice that all of these artists used sort of these wild techniques, and they started inventing things. I saw this painting too. This painting was stolen. No one knows who owns it, but there are many copies done of it. So there's symbolists like that. So notice that there's realism, impressionism, post-impressionism, symbolism, and then all ends with cubism. Oh, look at this. I'm not getting anything. I can't believe this. Cubism. Okay. Winnie the Pooh. Most of them are real, but some of them are jokes. Okay. Cubism, the important thing is that it does look ugly, but it launched artists into different areas. For instance, you got rid of the perspective and it went flat everywhere, and things look like the geometric objects. I've seen this one. Cubism was inspired by, of all things, African sculpture. I'm getting to, see, African sculpture. They saw this, they went into the past, and they invented a new art form, which was Cubism. So it kept going and going and going. We had abstract art. You had a lot of abstract art. So the first artist one of the first artists to work on abstract art was a guy named Mondrian. But Mondrian was an amazing artist. All he did was that he took realistic paint. He was a good realistic painter. Oh, here we are. It's taking forever. I can't believe this. We're in 2021, and computers are still slow as anything. I remember there were complaints like about 30 years ago where people said, well, we're going to fall behind the rest of the world because we don't have... where is it? See? No, that's not... Okay. Because we don't have optical connections. See, he did real paintings, and then he abstracted them, and finally he made an abstraction. It's called a non-objective abstraction. Cubism is just regular abstracting. This is called non-objective abstraction because in this painting here, you no longer recognize that it's a tree. Now, two people, this was in the 1930s, two people were working on non-objective abstraction. See, he abstracted to the point where he does this, and Revlon actually used a lot of his ideas, and he used primary colors. There's Mondrian, and then there's another guy. He was a group of artists called the Blue Rider group, and the guy's name was Kandinsky. It was called after this painting here, Blue Rider, Das Blaue Rider. So what Kandinsky did was, and both Mondrian, he was from Denmark, I think, and Kandinsky was from Russia. They both invented abstract art simultaneously. So what Kandinsky did is that he accidentally put a painting upside down in the studio, and someone walked into the studio and said, "Wow, that's a really nice painting. I don't want to know what it is, but it's beautiful." And therefore, abstract art was invented by Kandinsky. So Kandinsky went into like extremes, but let me just show you some of his work. Kandinsky, he did some amazing abstract work, but some of it is very dated and it's old-fashioned. But I like some of his earlier abstract work is a lot better. And he did a lot of objective abstractions where you could recognize the object, and non-objective abstractions where you don't recognize the object. So, by the way, there were women artists. Okay, there were impressionist women artists. Let me just go back to impressionism. So this is in the 1930s. Impressionism. When I was in Paris, um, there was a there's a show of this female impressionist artist. Impressionism female artists, and Berthe Morisot. Okay, impressionism. There was a show of Berthe Morisot. She was actually the wife of Manet's brother, so she was in some way related. So she did really, really beautiful paintings. I saw all of these were on show. Berthe Morisot, she worked really quickly, and she did some awesome paintings. That's a picture of her right here. Okay, but they don't have the best of Berthe Morisot. You weren't allowed to photograph it, but I snuck some photographs of her stuff because it was so beautiful. So anyway, let's just go forward where we went into post-impressionism and Van Gogh, and we went to Gauguin, who traveled in on these islands. They used really wild colors, symbolism, and then we had Cubism, and then we had abstract art, but so all of the art world was was concentrated on Paris, on France. And then suddenly there's these artists called the Post-Impressionists from New York. Oh, sorry. Um, Abstract. So they took abstract art, abstract impressionism, abstract impressionism. There we go. Then they invented something called abstract impressionism, which was a movement in the 1940s. It originated in New York City. So suddenly the art world shifted from Paris to New York. Abstract Impressionism. You probably know Abstract Impressionism of Jackson Pollock. You'll know this guy. He's called Jack the Dripper. Jackson Pollock. But he did some really, really beautiful work. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Pollock, but it's really good. Okay. This is amazing. This is an amazing painting. I don't like this stuff because he drips it, but the thing is, anyone who does drip paintings, they don't mean anything because Jackson Pollock did it. He was the first and he was the last. You just move on. With paintings, you just move on to the next thing. So there was Jackson Pollock, and then there was, I'm trying to remember, there's Jasper Johns. And remember, these are all Americans. Jasper Johns. Oh yeah, there's Mark Rothko. Notice that when I type in Mark right away it puts Rothko because he's a very highly searched artist. Mark Rothko. Someone puts a finger there. Well, you know, they think that they could do this, but the thing is, it isn't how simple art is, it's the fact that it evolves. And people don't appreciate it because this person here probably just cares about realism and doesn't understand the importance of history and art. So yeah, some of these aren't that beautiful, but some of them are beautiful. And Mark Rothko just pushed art more. He didn't do stuff that was done before. He did stuff that was new. There was also called minimalism. I'm just going with minimalism in art. Ugh. So I'm moving it forward in the 1900s. Wait, we saw that. Minimalism in art, and we also saw surrealism in art. Okay, the dreamlike world, and so on. All right. So finally, we kind of pushed every ism that there is. There's nothing new that could be invented in art. There was nothing new. So that's what artists did, is that they push things. Of course, we tend to criticize things and we say, oh, my 5-year-old could do that. But we don't realize that these people went out on a limb and they tried to invent something new and new and new and new, and finally they pushed the end and they couldn't do any more. And they couldn't do any more with minimalist art because that's all you can do. Some people made art with garbage and some people whatever. So where are you gonna go? It stopped. So there's this guy named Andy Warhol. He was a graphic designer, and he used techniques of graphic design rather than paintbrush, like a printing press and so on. And he actually invented a new art form. So when we thought that everything was dead, he invented a new art form. So what he did is that he took images from popular culture and he repeated them. Now, he was a genius because you're thinking, oh yeah, he repeats them and then he takes commercial images. Well, he asked permission, he got permission to take these images and so on. And then there's John Lennon. So what Andy Warhol did is that he realized that there were two kinds of art. There's art that's in museums and galleries that were like really expensive, and they only attracted rich people and so on. And there was art for the common people, which comes from popular art. So he took. My phone's ringing. I'm gonna shut it off. Sorry about that, folks. Excuse me. Just put this on pause for a second. I have to take this call. Hello. Hi. Yes, thank you for calling. Yes, I'm so sorry about Friday. It just, yeah, yeah. Well, I have a newborn daughter, and it's crazy. Yeah, so. I don't know. My wife made an appointment for him, didn't she? On Friday? Well, there's Patrick and my cat Beans. And can I get back to you because I'm kind of remote teaching. I'm online right now with my students. Okay, so okay, who are you? What's your name? Karen. Okay, I'll call you right back. Thank you. Okay, bye bye. Okay, I'm back. Sorry, that was the vet. So he used ideas from the common world and from popular art, and he repeated them because he knew that in advertising we get repeated images, and the more we see the images, the more we want to buy something, even though we get annoyed by it. So, for instance, Tim Hortons. We see Tim Hortons everywhere. We used to see ads on TV. Now we hear ads on radio. But the more we hear about those companies or those people, the more we are attracted to them. Andy Warhol looked kind of funny, but he was a very shy person. He never married. I think he was gay. I'm not sure, but he lived a life of celebrity, and he became a celebrity because that was what his art form was all about. But his main inspiration was Campbell soup cans, and he realized at that time everyone had Campbell soup cans in their kitchen. So he said, well, Campbell's soup can is just worthy of a work of art as anything else, isn't it? But he was really smart because he was sarcastic and critical about society and so on. He said, everyone has Campbell's soup cans, so everyone has a mini gallery in their household. So he started making little Campbell soup can paintings. At first he didn't ask permission to do this, and Campbell's soup did not sue him. He knew later that he had to ask permission, and he made all these beautiful little paintings of Campbell's soup. So that's where his aha moment was, that he took stuff from the real world and he he made it into an art. So what he did was he took low art and he made high art out of it. But mind you, okay, let me just show you something. This will blow your socks off. Andy Warhol, Lemon Marilyn. He he. Okay, let's get this. I can't believe this is so slow. He painted this one, which is pretty small, and it only sold at a gallery for $200, and he was kind of disappointed. But then as Andy Warhol became more and more famous, this painting kept going from hands to hands to hands, and it kept selling for more and more. Now, Lemon Marilyn cost, so he sold it for $200, and today it's worth $17.3 million. Lemon Marilyn sold for US $28 million at Christie's, 112,160 times its original price. So of course it isn't a great painting. Probably he didn't even do it himself, because he used to have what you call a studio where a lot of people did the work for him. He just had the ideas. So he did this original painting, but the fact is that he turned the art world upside down, and he invented something more or less called postmodernism. So just as we thought that art was dead, he came up and he invented postmodernism art. So what he did, he didn't invent anything original. He took ideas from the past or ideas that were around him, and he incorporated them in art. That's they show some wrong stuff here. That's what postmodernism is all about. The first real postmodernist art was one by, and I saw this one too when I went to New York, Johnson. Philip Johnson was an architect, and what he did is so funny, is that he took the shape of a grandfather clock and he put it on top of a building. So postmodernism is really assembling stuff from the old and the new and putting it together and making new artwork. But this is how beautiful the front looked like. So I saw this, and I told my wife, hey, look at that. This is the first postmodernist work of art. Anyway, it's the AT&T building. But anyway, someone like Andy Warhol came around, and he basically did the same thing. That's the kind of world that we live in right now. And a lot of people are cynical about art today because they don't understand it. And that's a problem with art, is that art moves ahead of society. And so we tend to think in a block, like we have blinders like horses on both sides of our eyes, and we just gallop forward and we get fed whatever the world gives us. But artists are new thinkers, and they always work ahead of society. So right now in postmodernism, so here's the Last Supper done in postmodernist way. I do a lot of postmodernist work. Let's see. I won't show any of my work, but if you type in Peter Harmethane, you see some artwork. So we went from realism to impressionism to post-impressionism to cubism. Then there's also fauvism. I forgot to talk about symbolism. What's it called? Surrealism, post-impression, abstract impressionism, and then minimalism, and then we went into postmodernism. So this is where we are today, postmodernism. And if you go into a gallery today, you will not understand what's going on because you don't know what happened before. So if you know the whole breadth, I used to teach art history, if you know the whole breadth of the historic world, you're thinking, wow, this is amazing. Other people will say, oh, this is so stupid. But that's the thing, is that art is really for people who are informed about it, and that's why I teach art history, so that everyone can actually enjoy what they see in front of them and understand what's going on. So here we are. We're in pop art. So I gave you a really quick view of pop art. Pop art basically is that Andy Warhol used to take something called silk screen. You create this mask here, and the paint actually goes through the silk that's in this area here, and you can make t-shirts and posters. You see that? You see how you're squishing the art through this? There's a mask, there's an open area in the silk screen, and then prints through. I used to teach at a school where there's a teacher who taught this technique. I used to have a job where I or has sold t-shirts that were made with this technique. So you see, this is what you get, a t-shirt like that. You just kind of put the cloth underneath it and you squeeze paint and there you go. You got a t-shirt. So this is Lemon, Maryland, which is worth $28 million. And it's significant because it was done by Andy Warhol. Andy Warhol's dead now. And he was the father, basically, of postmodernism. So the historic value of this painting is worth more than what it looks like. And that's why people buy this. You walk into someone's home and you say, you got Lemon, Maryland? And that's by Andy Warhol. He was like, he inspired so many artists, and he turned the art world on its head. He like progressed us forward like you wouldn't believe it. So that's a problem when people look at artwork and they say, oh, my 5-year-old could do this. They don't realize the historic value of it. Like, this is a stepping stone to a lot of greater things. So historically, this is an important, very important painting. Okay, Andy Warhol really loved this woman. Even though he may have been gay, he loved this woman because he inspired her. She ended up running off with Bob Dylan, I think, and then he got so burned. Oh, Edie Sedgwick, that's her name. It's written under here, Edie Sedgwick. And that's Mr. Harmony, and we're going to learn how to do this. Okay, there's another thing. A pop art artist. His name was Roy Lichtenstein. And he made these huge paintings. I don't know if we, based on the fact that we're using dots when we make magazines. If you ever look close to a magazine, it's made up of all these printmaking dots. So he took inspiration from sort of pulp fiction type of comic books, and he made gigantic, like this is really, really small, and he made copies of them, but gigantic paintings of them. And what he did is that he would modify it a little bit, and then he would paint in the little dots by hand. I don't know if you could see it, but I don't know. You saw it in the previous ones here. He'd paint the little dots in by hand. And then he was a really popular artist. So we're going to start with pop art, and I think we're going to go on to Roy Lichtenstein, who's very famous. They're all dead now, these artists. Andy Warhol actually, would he be alive today? He'd be in his 80s or 90s. But Andy Warhol died of a simple operation, a gallbladder operation. They didn't give him enough oxygen and he died. Which is strange because a couple of years before he was shot in the heart and he almost died there too. But he lived, and then he, I'll just because you probably don't believe me. Andy Warhol shot in heart. And Solana shot Andy Warhol because he had too much. Anyway, he almost died because he was shot, and someone made a movie out of it. And then he dies in the 1980s of a simple gallbladder operation. Anyway, so we're going to do Andy Warhol art, and I'd like you guys to open Photoshop. Now I'm going to open both versions of Photoshop. Actually, so open Photoshop. So those who bought Photoshop will get the CC version, which is really good. This is Neolithic art, what I taught my art students to do. They would make these paintings like this. And then for others, I'm going to open this version of Photoshop, which is free, not as good. And it's called Rabbit something. Oh, it might not open here. Oh, it doesn't open because this is open. So I'm going to open that version. Oh, darn it. I thought I could open both. White Rabbit version. I'll open the White Rabbit version. Now your version might be different. Maybe once White Rabbit is open, I'll be able to open the other one. No, it only does one Photoshop at once. Okay, I'm going to open this one. It's a little more basic. This is before the Creative Cloud. came out, but I'll do it with this, and then I'll do it quickly with the Creative Cloud. So what I'd like you to do is to go onto a browser. I think I still have you guys on. Oh, I can't. This is so silly. I can never find where I am in this. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to get rid of this. And I'm going to go on this. So I'm just going to check. I'm in Google Meets. You guys could see me. I'm still videotaping this, so you're still hearing me. And what I'd like you to do is to go on. So anyway, you guys are lucky. You got a crash course in art. And all the purpose of it is to just put pop art in perspective and not criticize it. And not criticize art that you see, modern art, because artists are always trying to push the envelope. They always have multiple meanings in their artwork. Especially today, it's more difficult to understand art without reading it. It's sort of like you can't suddenly jump into Hemingway without having read, earlier stuff. Okay, it really becomes a kind of education now. It's a problem with art, but you have to know a bit about art history to understand and appreciate art today. Okay. So what I want you to do is to go into pexels.com. That's where we would get our photos. And I want you to type in portrait. And you see a lot of portraits. Mostly women, but there's some male in there. So keep scrolling down. I want something high contrast, but not as high contrast as this woman here. I had students do this effect here. All you do is put the camera on a tripod, and you in low light you take a photo, the lens is open, and then the person moves. Okay, we're going to use this woman here because there's good contrast in her face. Like, there's good levels of shadow. This woman with the huge afro. And her the artist is Murat Esibatir. Murat Esibatir. So remember, we're on Pexels. I typed in portrait. We scroll down. Whoops. Here's some other photos by Murat Esibatir. Sorry, I just lost. Okay. Murat Esibatir. You could click on it, but the easiest thing to do is to click this little downward arrow and say thanks to Murat. The downward arrow, you don't have to. And it's going to save. I'm not going to save it on the desktop. I'm going to make it save on my downloads folder. So what it does, if you have Google Chrome up, is that it saves in the download folder and it puts it here at the bottom. You could easily just grab this, drag it down onto the taskbar, and plop it onto the Photoshop symbol. Don't let go, and then plop it on Photoshop, and that'll open the picture of the woman. So I'll give you guys a few seconds to do that. Let me just redo it again. So I went to Pexels, I typed in portrait, I scrolled down, I found the picture of this woman done by Murat Esibatir. I downloaded it onto my downloads. It puts it here at the bottom of the browser, and I drag that onto the taskbar, opens up Photoshop, and drag into Photoshop. Remember too, to be able to look at how good a photo is, you could go to Control 1. Control 1 zooms into the actual size, and you can actually see the texture on the skin and the face, and that means it's a pretty good photo. if you want to know the size of the photo, at the bottom it tells you how large the document is. There's a little arrow, and the little arrow opens up to this pop out, and you could go to document dimensions. The document dimensions here is 29 inches by 31 inches, so I have it in inches, not in pixels. If you go to Control 0, it puts it into Photoshop just perfectly. We're going to take a break. I'm supposed to give you guys a break at 9, so we got a couple of minutes. I'm going to show you what we're going to do. This is actually a little bit complicated to do in Photoshop, but you have to follow my instructions really carefully, because I did it last night and I discovered something new that makes it easier, but it's just an extra step. Let me just get rid of this garbage. So, what I want you to do, we got this picture of her. Remember, you could bring up you could hit F7 to bring up the layers palette. And I'm going to bring up my layers palette here. I'm just going to grab it. I'm going to take the menu in the layers palette, just go to my panel options and give a large thumbnail. Okay. I'm going to close these swatches. Close tab group. Close tab group. Close tab group. So I just have the layers palette there. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to lock this in. So I just have the layers palette when I open Photoshop. By Window, Workspace, I'm going to type in New Workspace. I'm going to type in Harmony, save. So next time I open Photoshop, it's going to just open it with the layers palette and not all that other stuff. Okay, so what I did is Window, Workspace, New Workspace, and I typed in Harmony, and that's what it is. So we have one more minute. I'm going to show you what we do next. So when you use, this is really, really old, this filter gallery. If you go into filter gallery, it does all this stuff here. Okay? The filter gallery I'm going to cancel is really old because it deals with smaller resolution photographs. So what we have to do, this is actually, if you go to image size, you're going to realize that this photo is 2132 pixels by 2229 pixels at 72 pixels per inch. So we're going to modify it, then I'm going to give you guys a 10-minute break. So again, what you do is you go to image size, and we're going to change the resolution, let's say to 300 because that's print quality. Now that pushes up the width and the height a lot. So what I want you to do is to find the smallest dimension, which is the 8883 pixels. And because they link together, it's going to adjust the height. And just write in 1500. Okay? 1500. So let me just do that again for you, and then we'll go on a break. So we get an image size, change the resolution to 300 pixels per inch. That pushes the dimensions up, but don't worry. We're going to change the smallest number, which is 8,800 rather than 9,000, and put that at 1,500 pixels. And then go OK. And now it'll be easier to work with the filters. All right. So anyway, take your break. I'll be back at 10 after 9, and we'll make this into a pop art picture. Okay, I'm back on. Sorry, I'm back on now. Sorry, I'm a little late. Okay, so we're gonna go back into Photoshop. Make sure my microphone's on. Make sure my recording is happening. All right. So we got this woman here. What we did, let me just go back a bit. We changed the image size. I don't know if you really have to do this, but I will. It just makes a little difference. So I changed the resolution to 300. I'm just recapping this. So that boosts up my pixel count. And but I'm going to take the lower number. I'm going to put it to 1,500. So look what happens actually. Let me just cancel. Let me show you actually. So, sorry, what was this? Image size. If you look at this box, it says that the pixel dimensions makes it 14 megabytes. Okay, 14 megabytes is a pretty big size image. If we change the resolution to 300, instead of just being able to watch it on the internet, you could actually print it out. It changed it to 8,883 width and 9,579 height. And that moves it from 14 megabytes to 243 megabytes. That's way too big. It would take like 1 minute to download that when I watched your files, and I'd be pretty angry. So I'd bring this width down to 1500, and that brings it down to 6.4 megabytes. Okay, that's reasonable. And then I go, okay. It brings it down, but if you go to Control 1, it brings it to the actual dimensions, and it looks pretty much the same, but it's using much less space. Control 0 puts it in frame. Okay, so I don't know if I really made a difference, but I don't think you have to worry about it, particularly if you download kind of this level of resolution image. So we go to now filter and filter gallery, like I said, is an old thing in Photoshop. It's old because it dealt when pictures were a lot smaller. So the resolution makes a difference. Today the resolution of pictures is so huge that that the filter gallery, they have to be adjusted to take advantage of the filter gallery. So I think one thing Photoshop could do is change the filter gallery so it matches the resolution of the images today. Now if you look at the bottom of the filter gallery, we have 100%, but we have fit and view. See, click this little arrow here. You could go to 1600%, or you could go to 6%, and then I'm going to fit in view. Oh, actual pixels, I wonder what that is. Okay, fit in view will fit the woman in view. Okay. Of course, everything is works here too. Control minus will zoom out. Control plus will zoom in. There's several folders for the different things that you could do. Let me just make sure. I just want to make sure something here. We're presenting. Okay. I want to make sure I'm presenting. Okay. There's several folders. We're going to choose artistic folder. Now, for those who have really good Photoshop, I'm going to show you another step you could do. But you open up artistic folder and you click on the second one called cutout. And cutout is going to give you sort of this kind of view. But at the right, it gives you the number levels, the edge simplicity, the edge fidelity. So just play around with those. You see how you did get different levels. Edge simplicity, you don't want to put that too far to the right. And edge fidelity, you could just keep it low. Okay, just play around with those a bit. Number levels, 2 levels. Pretty cool. You can actually count the number of levels. So if you bring it all the way to the left, there's 2 levels. There's black and there's this mid-tone. But actually there's a little bit different color there, so it's not exactly accurate. So what I'd like you to do is put the number of levels. You could click on the little box and put it at 8. Edge simplicity 4. And edge fidelity 2. I don't know. I think edge fidelity, we'll put it at 1 because it doesn't make it as crunchy. See, if you, oops, if you put it at 1, then the outlines won't be as edgy. If you put it to the far right, the outlines will, I don't know if it really makes that much of a difference. Okay, we'll put the edge fidelity at 1. So we got 8, 4, and 2. I'm just going to change that because I find that 1 works better. And my pen just broke on me. Come on. 1. Okay. Now, go OK. And we got this. Now for the rest of you who have the other Photoshop version, you could go back to filter. Never choose the top, the first level, even though it says filter gallery. Never choose that, because what it's going to do, it's just going to give you the same effect. So just go back down where filter gallery is the third one. And for the rest of you who have good level Photoshop, I'd like you to choose filter gallery. Oh man, I forget where it is. I think it's in stylize. Instead of just glowing edges, you have something called oil paint. Okay, I'd like you to try oil paint. And oil paint is going to soften the edges and won't make it as hard. I think it might be in sketch or distort. No, I think brush strokes. No, I think with the new Photoshop, you go into stylize, not in texture, right? No, you go into stylize and there's oil paint there. So click oil paint and it'll smoothen the edges. Just play around with the levels. The other thing with oil paint is that you have to make sure that you unclick the highlighting square. I'm sorry I don't have it here, but there's oil paint function. There's different sliders you could use, and there's a little square that says lighting. Just make sure you unclick it, because if you don't, then you're going to get kind of like lighting at an angle and you'll be able to see the brush strokes. Okay, so if you choose oil paint, then do it at a really cool effect and undo the little box. So let's just cancel it. And I think that someone just talked to me over the thing. Let's just see. I can't find oil paint in Photoshop CC. Really? Oh. Okay, let me take a look. I'm going to open Photoshop CC in a second. So what I'm going to do, oh no, it's going to mess this up. I'm just going to save this. Save as. I'm going to do it on the desktop. I'm going to show you oil paint just a second. Okay. Just a second. So I'm going to open Photoshop CC. Okay. Now I'm going to open the browser. I'm going to put this on Photoshop CC. I'm going to change her to 300, just a second, 300, 1500, okay, 0. I'm going to go to filter gallery. Nope, artistic. Go to artistic cutout. 8, 4, 1. Oh, let's just take a look at this, fit and view. Okay. Now I'm going to go to image, whoops, filter gallery. Let me just fit this in view. Let's go to stylize. Oh yeah. What? Sketch. I see what you mean. Distort. Brush strokes. That's a good question. Where the heck did I find it? Second, I'm gonna put it on pause because, okay, apparently my notes say that this is so strange because it must be an extra filter applied for the school computers, but not this one. This is very, very frustrating. So it is filter stylize. We just have glowing edges. It's supposed to be in stylize. So I wonder how we get add filters. Let me just put this on pause. Okay, let me try this here. So in my layers menu, notice that it's locked. I'm going to unlock it. So to unlock it, let me just review that again. You just take the lock away. I don't know if that makes a big difference. Let me just close this. It's just in the way. So we go to filter menu. Instead of going to filter gallery, go to stylize and choose oil paint, and it's whited out. It's ghosted. This is so frustrating. Okay, let me just try to get the bottom of it. I'll pause it. Try this. Open Photoshop. Go to your edit menu. Go scroll down to the bottom. There's a little arrow. Preferences. Edit menu, preferences. Scroll right down. Performance. Use graphics processor. I don't know if this computer has one or if yours has one. Go to OK. Now go to filter, stylize, oil paint. Oh, there it is. Photoshop has encountered a problem with the display driver. Is temporarily disabled. That use continue. Let me just see. Okay. Well, in my case, it worked in class because we had a graphics processor. But this one obviously doesn't, so we can't do it. Okay, I don't know if you guys could do it, but if you can turn it on, if your computer have a graphics processor, these ones are cheap ones. I thought it was a lot better. But edit, preferences, performance, and you're supposed to turn on this little thing here, use graphics processor. Let me just see what the internet says. No, I can't do it because see, this doesn't have a separate card for a graphics processor. It's built into the motherboard. So if you guys could use the graphics processor, maybe I'll do the basic. Okay. Okay, let's try this again. Filter, stylize, oil paint. No, I won't do it. Okay, that was a good question, but I can't apply it here, but I could apply it to the computers at school, which is pretty cool. What it does is that it makes this look like oil paint, and it takes these levels and it doesn't make it as crunchy if you take the lighting thing off. So it just takes a little bit more effort from your computer. You have to have a good computer. But this is good enough as it is. But it's too bad. If you have the oil filter, then just use it because it's really beautiful. Alright, so we got a half an hour until lunchtime. Yeah?
Can you get that oil painting effect on the other version of Photoshop?
I really doubt it, but I'll
Oh,
take a
okay.
look.
I was looking for it, but thank you.
Oh, you couldn't find it? Did you go to filter stylize oil?
Yeah, and I went to the preferences, like GPU or performance GPU
And
stuff,
were you able?
and
Yeah.
no, I couldn't find it.
No, no. I think it's with the CC only. So we're gonna do. It. I'm gonna close this. I'm gonna open the other one. By the way, the other one is. I shouldn't say this, but it's probably a stolen version, a cracked version, and I should not give it to you guys. But I really believe in Photoshop, and you can't tell anyone about this, and you have to get rid of it from your computer because when I got it, it was originally in Italian. I had to somehow find a way to translate it English. But you just throw all those files into this little folder, and then you just go through the DLL files and you find the Photoshop exe. You double click on that, it'll open White Rabbit. And it's pretty good because it's only about 380 megabytes worth of files, and it does most of what Photoshop does, but it won't do the video editing. It's some limited animation, and it won't do 3D and stuff like that, which modern Photoshop does. So it just does the basic things. So I'm gonna open the. So gonna open. Put this woman on here. Here we go. Okay, we're back to this version here. So notice when I opened it, it saved the format that I'd saved it as. So if I go to Window, Arrange, it'll Workspace, then it saved it as Harmony, which has a check mark on it. So it remembered the setting that I had. So you have this woman right here. Oh, it's too bad we can't do the oil paint thing. Now, one thing you could do, you could go, those who have the old version, go to Windows, Swatches. And what Swatches does, let me try to get this bigger, large thumbnail. Swatches gives you about over 100 different colors. Now for the modern Photoshop, Swatches gives you different file folders, which gives you the same thing as this. So there's pastel, there's pure colors, there's other colors like that. But it's kind of the same thing, but it's broken down into their names. So what we're going to do is that we're going to color each individual space here that the woman is in. I just want to make sure that I have the right kind of image size. Okay. And we're going to put it into different colors. So let me show you how you do that. So you choose the paint bucket tool. I don't know why my toolbar is so small. You choose the paint bucket tool, which is sometimes hidden in the gradient tool. And if you may not have it here, then you click on the three dots and there's going to be a fly out and you choose the regular paint bucket tool. So the problem with the paint bucket tool is that it defaults with a tolerance of 32. That means that it's going to take a range, like for instance, if I paint bucket this red in here, well, it's just going to choose that space. But if you want to limit the amount that it fills in color, you should put the paint bucket tool to 5. It means that it looks at a narrower range of colors, and so it will paint it in. So what I'd like you to do is to choose different colors, paint in the spaces, different colors, and spend some, oh, red is too close. Oh, cool. I'm going to put that as yellow. Maybe it's a little too strong, but anyway, just keep doing that kind of thing. Cool. Okay. I'm just going to keep her hair dark because it's too much of a change. Or maybe I'll do that. No. So just keep doing that.
How do you get like the array of colors on the right side?
Well, if you have the modern Photoshop, you can't. You just go to Window menu and you go to Swatches, and it's going to give you a box with different file folders in it. And some of the file folders will say pure colors, some of them will say pastel colors, and some of them will say other colors. Do you see that?
Yeah.
So it's like this, except it's broken up into envelopes. So unfortunately, you'll have to go into the different envelopes and open them up. But I think you could open up all the envelopes and have it spread out like this. I'm not sure if they close or not, but yeah. So just spend a minute or so just filling in. Don't fill in the black area of her because it seems to like fill in a lot. So just do the face. Don't worry about the fingers. Um, I'll tell you there's another step. If you don't want it to fill in like all like this, then what you could do, what I'm doing is Control Plus, and I'm just going to close off that gap and close off that gap here. So let me just close off that gap here, close off that gap here, and then I think I'll be able to use the paint bucket tool and fill in the eyes. Oh yeah, I can. Alright. And don't worry about doing too much. So just do a basic amount and I'll tell you what the next step is. Okay, I'll just pause it and wait for you guys. Don't worry about doing every single space, okay? I'll just pause it, give you guys a bit of time. I gave you guys 2 minutes. So hopefully you have enough of this painted, just the face, not the hair, but if you want to do the hair, that's fine. Give you guys about 2 minutes. I'll tell you what the next step is. The next step, sometimes when you color it in like this, you kind of mess it up. You can't really tell the divisions, or sometimes the colors are really close to each other. There's a way of separating it out, and most of my students who do this project forget this step, but it does help. So you go back to the filter menu. Don't choose the last filter that you chose at the top. Go down to the filter gallery. And, oh, actually, you could apply cutout again, but that's up to you. I'm not going to apply cutout again. I'm going to go down to what we call poster edges. So I'll go down to poster edges, and poster edges put this fine black line around each division. You see, without poster edges, it's a little harder to see the image. But if you go to filter, filter gallery, well, if you apply cutout again, it'll look kind of interesting. That's up to you, fit and view. But I won't. I'll go to poster edges. So for poster edges, let me just okay. Poster edges, I'd like you to choose 5 551. Posterization 551. So what that does is that it makes it the image stand out a bit more. If you don't want to apply it, that's what it'll look like. To apply it, looks like that. Okay. You could have different level poster edges. Again, if you have a computer that could run the oil filter, you could get rid of this really crunchy line. If you use a lower resolution image and a higher contrast image, then you don't need those crunchy lines. We have those crunchy lines simply because the contrast isn't strong enough. What I would suggest to avoid that, if you want to, so anyway, I'm going to leave it like this. I'm going to don't do what I'm doing. I'm just showing you. Let me just close this. I'm going to go to pixels, and I'm just going to choose high contrast portrait. You see, this is okay. High contrast portrait photos. This is not high contrast because you don't see sharp shadows. I don't know if a lot of people don't know what high contrast portrait is. Why are there mountains here? So I'd have to look a little bit more, but I'll show you on Google. If you type in high contrast portrait, then you actually see high contrast portraits. So I guess in this case I would allow you to go to Google. See, this is when you have very, very strong separation of the tones. Some of them are not high contrast. They're flatly lit, but they, you know, high contrast here. High contrast definitely there. This is too high contrast, just two-toned. But this is higher. Well, this is okay. It's still a little soft. See, when you have two soft edges, it makes it a little more difficult. When you have hard edges, it's a lot easier. Like this might be easier too. This would be too easy. This would be too easy. But this would be, oh, this would be a very good photo for high contrast. See, this is what I'm looking for. The one you guys actually, so when you do high contrast, it makes it easy to do something like that. Okay. So this is a nice high contrast image. I'm actually going to keep that one. Save image as, downloads, unnamed. There we go. This might work better for the effect. But you see, the more gradual and softer the portrait, the more crunchy edges you're going to have. The more sharp contrast you have, the straighter lines you're going to have in this effect. So maybe I didn't choose the best image, but we're going to work with it. Okay, so we have this. We're going to create a file that we throw this into. So just go to File, New, and make sure you have inches rather than pixels selected here. Inches. So let me just say that again. We're going to keep this open. Okay, keep it open. We're going to go to File, New. Doesn't matter what title it is. We're going to go to inches. We're going to go to 9 by 9 inches. And the reason I'm doing 9 by 9 inches is because we're going to lay 9 images down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Just like the ones I gave examples. 9 by 9 inches. And because we're dealing with 300 resolution from the other one, we're going to move 300. The color mode should always be red, green, and blue color. 8-bit. Okay? You don't do any higher bit than 8. So 9 inches by 9 inches, 300 pixels per inch, RGB color. Okay. So it's going to give you a nice square that's 9 by 9 inches. No one's stopping me? If you do Control R, then you get to see the ruler at the top. That's Control R. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You see, it's exactly 9 inches. That way, and 9 inches vertically. So we're going to actually show the grid on this. So I'm going to show you how to show the grid on this. It's a little bit of an advanced step, but be patient with me. focus on this and we'll do it together here. Okay. So you choose view. Is it view? No, window. Oh, no, I think it's view. View. Huh, I thought it was view guides. Show. There it is. Okay, view, show. Maybe you guys in the new Photoshop would just have the grid already there. View, show, grid. Okay, view, menu, show, and the pop-up for show is grid, and it gives you this grid here. You might not have 9 across, but I'll show you how to do it. You should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 that way. If you don't have 9 by 9 squares, I'll tell you what the problem might be. And watch carefully what I'm doing here. We go back to preferences, okay? You go back to edit menu, you go all the way down to preferences. Remember, you might have to click the little downward arrow. Edit menu, preferences, and you see where it says guides, grid, and slices. Edit menu, preferences, guides, grid, and slices. Here at the kind of the right of it, you say grid line every 1 inch, and subdivisions here are 4, but you can make it 8 or 10, it doesn't matter. The important thing is that you have a grid line every 1 inch. Okay, so what I did there is that I went to edit menu, I went to preferences, guides, grids, and slices, and I made sure that grid line was every 1 inch. Subdivision doesn't matter as much. Okay, so if you put the grid line every 1 inch, it's actually going to show a nice solid grid line. So you're going to have 1, 2, 3, so 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so anyway, so we got that. It's really nice. We're going to take this image and we're going to go to crop. Go click on the little crop symbol, the crop tool, and I want it to be a square. Okay, to make it square, let's just randomly put in 3 by 3. Okay, that's kind of what we want to do. Just draw a grid on it. Okay, so the crop tool, the option bar, I put 3 inches by 3 inches. If it isn't in inches, oh no, then you have to go into edit menu, preferences, units and rulers should be inches. Let me do that again. See, that's a problem with Photoshop, is that you have to speak certain language. So edit menu, preferences, units and rulers, and you set here units, inches instead of pixels. Usually I like pixels, but we'll put it in inches. Rulers, okay. So we have 3 inches, 3 inches. We draw a what's it called? A crop. Then you click inside of it and move the crop. New Photoshop, you'll actually move the image instead of the crop. I want you to crop really tightly on the face. That's why you really didn't have to do the fingers. Okay. We're going to crop tightly on the face. Notice it was 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Check mark it. The problem with this, if you don't go to Control U for, Control R for rulers, cancel. Oh, look at that, it's going to do 1, 2, 3. Oh, that's pretty cool. Just 3 inches by 3 inches. Wow, what do you know? If it's 3 inches wide, it's going to work perfectly. But those of you who don't have 3 inches wide, I hope no one's confused here because I'm not explaining it well. Then what you have to do is have to go back. No, not in preferences, but you have to go to image and canvas size, and you have to type in 3 inches by 3 inches here, okay? I know. So image, if it isn't 3 inches here, then you have to go to image, canvas size, and make sure you have 3 inches by 3 inches. So we just have to guarantee, okay? Probably because I did this yesterday and it set it at 3 inches by 3 inches. Okay. Now it's 3 inches by 3 inches. So that's what we wanted. We wanted to adjust our face. We wanted it 3 inches by 3 inches so that we could copy it into the next document that we created, 9 by 9. Okay, are you guys okay? So if this isn't 3 inches, just go to, what did I do again? I forgot what I did. Image, canvas size, and make sure it's 3 inches by 3 inches. Okay. Now you go to Control A to select it all. Control A. Let me make sure I'm recording this. Control C to copy it. Okay. Control A, select all. Control C to copy it. Make sure you do Control C. And then you're going to do Control V as in victory. And then use the move tool, the very top tool on your toolbar, and you can move it. Oh, darn it, it doesn't move it in place. Oh, darn it. Let me just Control Z. Well, you know what? It isn't perfect. This is too bad. I thought that I had a perfect image size. I thought I had. Ah, I see. The resolution is not exact. Okay. You know what? Control A, Control Copy, Control V, Control T, and we resize that darn thing so it snaps into 3 by 3. Well, I thought I had it perfectly. Let me just undo it so you guys could see what I did. So I took this image, which I thought was 3 by 3, but the thing is the resolution changed for some stupid reason. See, image size. I have 3 by 3, but I have 328 instead of 300 resolution. So I could easily fix it by changing it to 300, but I won't because everyone's got it messed up. So Control A, Control C, click into here, Control V, use the move tool. What's really neat about having a grid is that it actually snaps to each little grid here, the picture. Control T and resize it to fit in the 3 by 3 grid, and it snaps to it, okay? Snaps to all the little grid lines. Oh well. Check mark it. Make sure it fits into 3 by 3 inch square because we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now you do Control J. Make sure you have the move tool selected. You move it over. You click it in there. Control J. Move it over. Keep going, Control J, so you have all 3 by 3 squares filled. And then I'll tell you what the next step is. Control J. Keep doing Control J. Until you fill it like that. I'll tell you guys how to get rid of the grids, because the grid is kind of bothersome now. Let me just see how we get rid of the grids. Okay. pausing because I'm giving you guys some time to do all this. I used to take a Photoshop course where the teacher just went forward as fast as possible, and even I got lost. Control J, move tool, move it till you got it all, the whole grid filled. To remove the grid, you go to View, Show, and you see there's a little check mark next to the word grid. Well, you just uncheck it and the grid will go. Okay. So to get rid of the grid, am I going too fast? Let me just take a look at the discussion thing here. For some reason my paint bucket tool fills in a pattern instead of solid colors. I was messing around with different brushes and now I can't get rid of it. I can't click it. Okay, don't worry about it. I'm confused about that. I am confused. What was the image size? Oh, I see. Okay, the reason, I'll answer each question. Okay, the reason the paint bucket fills with pattern is because it's probably set to pattern here instead of foreground color. But we are going to be doing a pattern pop art. Okay, so in your always look at the option bar, and the option bar is going to tell you whether it's right or not. So it's filling up a pattern because you have pattern written selected there. Okay, so just click on foreground. Oh, it's almost 10 o'clock. So now in terms of the size, Alicia, your question is about the size. Just make sure you have you did a file new, and you have 3 by 3 inches. Make sure this is inches, and you have a resolution 300 pixels per inch. I don't know why I changed to 328. Oops. Just make this image square. The best way to make a square, Control D will deselect. Oops. The best way to make a square, I think, is to hold the Shift key while I should probably have asked you guys to do this. See, if you don't hold the Shift key when you crop, you could crop any size. But right here we cropped it at 3 by 3. But if you don't specify 3 by 3, then the crop tool will be any size. Control, let's undo it. But if you hold the Shift key, then the crop tool will be 1 to 1. Okay. The Shift key will make it a square. I should have just had you guys do that. Then when you check mark it, you go to Control A, Control Copy, and in here you do Control V, and you do Control T to resize it, and then you fit 9 of them in there. Okay. This should be, like I said, file new. Should change the pixels to inches, resolution to 300, and just have a 9 inches by 9 inches. Okay. Then you have a grid like this. All right. I may have confused you with the grid size and all that kind of stuff, but at least you'll have 9 by 9, and when you paste image into it, you Control T, and you could resize it so it fits in the 3 by 3 box, and then you just copy it from box to box to box. You have to check mark it. Control J makes a copy. Use the move tool and move it over into the next 3 by 3 box. So remember, Control T will resize it and it will snap to the box. So you do it until you have all 9 areas filled. Now it's 10 o'clock now. I want you guys to get to this point and then to remove the grid, and then I'll see you guys again at 11. So it's your lunchtime now. So if you go to View, Show, and undo the grid check mark, then you'll have this. Now I want you to save this just in case you lose it. So save. I'm going to save it on the desktop. I'm going to call it, I don't know, what are we, lesson 23? I can't even remember. So just call it lesson 23 tutorial 1 Photoshop format. Save, and I'm saving it on the desktop. Okay, so see you at 11. Have a lunch break. Alicia, do you still have questions that I can answer? Any problem? The rest of you can go for a lunch break and come back at 11.
Yeah, it's just that I'm on different computer because I use my dad's computer, not the other computer I'm using.
Oh, so what's the name of the computer you're on right now?
Right now I'm on the Banqua and the other computer I'm using, which is the I don't know what's the name, but I'm gonna explain to him what I'm using it.
Okay, are you, um, if you make 3 by 3, yeah, okay. So, did you want me to look at your desktop and take a look what the problem is? Are you still having a problem with that size?
Well, right now I'm just not really sure because my dad told me I cannot show it presenting because I'm on his computer and I'm using as the school computer for meeting, but not on the dad's computer.
Oh, so are you able to follow this tutorial or not?
Um, well, I'm not really sure about it because I'm still falling, but I'm not sure what I'm gonna do because I'm just a little confusing.
Oh, because you don't have your dad's computer, right?
I have dad's computer, but my dad's computer is different than the other school computer.
And you don't want me to see your screen.
Well, we'll try, but I don't know what to do.
So what you have to do is you have to click the present now, and it's going to show you a picture of the computer screen, and you click on that picture of a computer screen and you go okay. Let me just see what it does. Oh yeah, you choose your entire screen and you click the compute that screen and you go share. Okay.
okay.
So you go to present your entire screen, click on the image of the computer screen and share. And then I'll be able to see your screen. Is it working?
I'm on my dad's computer, but I'm using it as a school computer for a meeting because he doesn't want me to log into a classroom.